Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you a very special painting video. Arch Villain Games recently approached me and asked if I would like to showcase some new miniatures that they have coming out. Of course, I jumped at the opportunity as soon as I seen them, because I was very excited to learn that Arch Villain Games, after 3 years of producing fantasy miniatures, are finally putting their hand towards science fiction. With that, they gave me the option of a bunch of different miniatures to choose from, and I had to choose these beautiful space dwarf mechs. They stood out from all the other releases that they had on hand, and I just had to print one and get it painted up for a video. More details on Arch Villain's upcoming releases later in the video. And here is the piece, straight and fresh from the printer, all supports still attached. As you can see, it's quite a large piece, a bit larger than I was expecting it to be, which I was kind of happily surprised about. As per usual with Arch Villain Games miniatures, all you need to do is submerge it in a little bit of warm water and all the supports pop right off. Super easy, super well designed kits, and especially with the added supports, makes life of getting these miniatures cleaned up and assembled a lot easier. So like I said, soak for a little bit until the supports go a little bit soft. And then it takes literally no pressure for them all to just fall away. And once all of the components are free from their supports, the handy plugs make it extremely easy to assemble miniatures. I use a touch of super glue on these 3 components. 4 if you include the beautiful scenic base, which of course you can choose to print off and use, or just put them on a normal base. It's totally up to you. In the end, I went for the scenic base. It looked gnarly, made him even taller, and I gave the model a coat of Chaos Black, and then I gave him an overcoat of Grey Seer. It was now time to move on to the painting. So I started with Blood Angel's Contrast, and I applied this all over the flat armor panels of this miniature. So I will be painting up this behemoth to match in with my Leagues of Votann army. As for what rules I will use for it just yet, I'm not sure, but I'm sure I can find something cool to match in. I definitely think the aesthetic matches beautifully, and who can say no to more options for their cool sci-fi armies. It can of course be used for a ton of these miniature agnostic games, plus Arch Villain Games themselves are bringing out a set of skirmish rules sometime in the near future, which these models will be perfect for. After the Blood Angel Red contrast was applied to the entire piece, I moved over to Black Templar to pretty much block in the rest of the panels or pieces on this. So anywhere where 2 pieces of armor connect, where there's joints or servos or cabling or anything like that in between, I gave them a coat of the black contrast paint. The gun on his left arm got a coat of it, and most of the axe also got a coat. Most of the head of the axe, should I say. I also took the time to black out the canopy. I will be putting a lot more work into the canopy later on, so this is just to give it kind of an initial coat, just so we know what we're working with. If I was a better painter, perhaps I could make it look like the old squat style sunglass visor reflecting the horizon across that beautiful big flat panel. Fortunately, I'm not skilled with that, so I'm going to go with the kind of glossy black look, as if it's got a reflective screen to stop the sun hitting the pilot. So like I said, a quick coat of black across that. As you can see, I hit the shoulder pads, any parts that are going to be gold later on, like the big panel across his shin. I also went for a little bit of gold, or a little bit of black, sorry. Once all those bits were blocked in, it was time to move across to the metallics. I went for Iron Hand Steel, and I blocked in any of the other bits. So there's a bunch of these, almost like crane links. Maybe that's how this thing gets towed into battle, Pacific Rim style. Then gets dropped off, or maybe it's how it's stored or transported. I don't know, whichever way you think it's coolest. So all those links got a coat of silver, and then of course the axe is obviously a lot of silver. The big blade, most of the haft is actually wrapped, but the start of it and the end of it isn't. So I get them a nice coat of silver. Quick and easy. It was quite a pleasant miniature to paint. There's actually 4 different sculpts of this exact miniature, so I think I want to print off the other 3. Volupus Pink was used for the very minimal fabric parts on this big iron behemoth, so he's got a piece of like a tassel thing hanging down. And then the wrapping for his big axe, I decided to throw in that same color just so I didn't have to add in another kind of random color. I thought the Volupus pink scheme would look super well on it next to the red. Wait to the end of the video and find out if you think I was correct with that, but I think it turned out pretty good. From here it was time to move on to Retributor Armour Gold. And this was for the last kind of bits of base coat across this miniature, which is all the gold trim. So I decided that the entire kind of frame of the canopy would be ornate gold to really make this thing stand out as a relic of a clan that has been lovingly and artisanally built. And there's also some kind of dwarf runic pieces around the panels, so I gave them a nice coat of gold as well. I was trying to be as careful as I can with the canopy, but I do realize I have to paint it black again later on, so I didn't have to be too careful. I then applied a Reikland Flesh shade across the entire piece. Every little piece of it got this coat, just to seal it all in, bring the tones kind of closer together and protect that contrast from wear and tear. And now, more details about the model range. After 3 years of designing ultra high quality fantasy models, Archvillain Games has finally released a sci-fi model subscription. If you subscribe as an Omniversal Archvillain, you can get everything new released in both the fantasy and sci-fi lines each month. Archvillain Games will also be releasing Battle Ruin, their very own skirmish wargame, within the next few months. Okay, and let's get back to painting. While the shade was drying on this piece, I obviously took the time to base the miniature as well, just so that was done and out of the way. And then it was time to get to my favorite part of painting, which is of course layering the model up, making it look bright and vibrant and cool and interesting. So I started with Mephiston Red, and I layered up all of the red that I had done with the contrast, being careful to leave the darker tones in all the recesses and all the dark lines, all those bits and pieces. This took a surprisingly long amount of time. I kind of thought I would fly through this, but I think it took about a half an hour, 40 minutes for the Mephiston Red coat, as this is the one I needed to be the neatest with and get kind of the most solid coat with. I will be jumping up to Evil Sunz Scarlet in a moment to really bring the armor up to the next level. And that one took not nearly as much time because we're just aiming for the kind of higher points. But with the Mephiston, really did add a kind of a level of neatness to the model, which I really like to see. As you can see, the model is very well designed. Any model that is kind of well designed is just a joy to paint. It's not overly complicated as well, if that makes sense. It's not kind of completely full of gubbins and bits and pieces and extra bits that are just really going to slow you down without really adding a lot to the actual end result of the miniature. I find when a model gets that kind of nice balance, it makes the painting process truly enjoyable. This is it with the Mephiston Red fully applied. Like I said, we're going to go up one more step with the red. We're going to jump to Evil Sunz Scarlet. I think I showed you enough with the Mephiston Red, like the how I'm applying this, so I'm not going to go through it all again with the Evil Sunz. Like I said, we're just aiming for the kind of flatter panels, raised areas, things that people are going to be looking at. And any bits that would be a natural shadow, we're going to keep with that Mephiston Red coat. The kind of domed cockpit area will of course be one of those primary focuses, so the majority of that did in fact get a coat of the Evil Sunz. and I really did take my time and methodically enjoy this. Here it is with all of the Sunz Scarlet all done up, looking quite slick. I then moved over to Corvus Black to layer up all those black parts that were on from the contrast, minus, like I said, the canopy. I'm going to do something a little bit different with that. I don't want that to have any hint of grey to it or anything like the Corvus Black is going to bring in. I want that to be jet black, so I'll be using a different black for that in a moment. But Corvus Black was used to layer up all the other black parts in the miniature. The head of the axe, which has a lot of mechanical parts to it, which I did in black, and both shoulder pads, the gun protruding from the other arm. There's time to then move over to Ironbreaker to layer up all the metallic parts in this. Those are both the silver and the gold parts. Bright silver is actually a fantastic highlight color to use for gold. All you do is basically touch all of the sharp points on a gold part. So anywhere there's an angle where it changes direction, you put a dot of silver there, and by the end of it, the piece is going to look stunning. When you have something as kind of clean and crisp as the knot of gold work across this axe, you can basically just do a quick dry brush very lightly, and it will catch it out beautifully. For the gold around the frame of the cockpit, I just did a simple edge highlight, room fine steel around all those parts, and it made the gold pop. Looked like I put in loads of effort. Really, I didn't. The direction that I held the brush, if I hit the black, didn't matter. Like I said, I'm going to be going and doing that over again in a second. It was only when we were doing the outside of the cockpit where we would be scraping along red that we need to take our time and be careful, as we don't want to hit that. Fine pointed brush will do you well. With that, we were really starting to get somewhere. So I went for the Abaddon Black, which is a much darker black, and I then painted in the black canopy very carefully not to hit any of the gold parts, as those in my opinion are now finished, and I did not want to mess them up. Cockpit is obviously made of 3 small windows. Getting into the smaller ones a little bit trickier, but like I said, rotate the model around as opposed to trying to bend your brush hand. Therefore you'll have better control, and it's less likely that you'll be hitting any parts you don't want to hit with the black paint. There's a black canopy blocked in. I then went for a coat of Ard Coat, which is a heavy gloss varnish. So if any of you guys have a gloss varnish, you can obviously do this particular step with that. And basically it's just going to make the canopy look shiny, like it's a fighter plane canopy or whatever, which I think adds a really nice small aesthetic to it, and really polishes off and finishes off this particular piece nicely. There's a few extra details that I did that I don't think are important to show on camera. I threw a warp lightning contrast over the smoke trail coming out of the gun. I used things like Screamer Pink to layer up the tassels on the shoulder pad and the handle of the axe. And with those final bits of detail done, this was the final result of my labors, and I must say I cannot wait to sink my teeth into more of their new miniatures. And there we have it, one completed battle mech thing from Archvillain Games. Obviously I've painted it up to match my Leagues of Votann. Take from that what you will. I'm sure I will make up some cool rules for it, use it as an armature or something, and add it into the army. Thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. Please give it a like below if you enjoyed it. Ask me any questions you'd like in the comments below. And if for some crazy reason you are not already subscribed to my channel, it would mean the world to me if you took 2 seconds out of your day and hit that subscribe button. If you want to support me even further making these cool videos and progressing this channel to new and crazy heights, there's links to things like my Patreon below, which will give you access to a private Discord server where you can hang out with me and get involved in all of the cool events that we have coming up. Thank you guys once again. I'll see you in the next one.